Hello everybody and welcome back to another Batman Miniature Game 3rd Edition Battle Report for the channel. Recording this before the new starter set is out, but you might see it after it's out. So just as a warning regarding if it comes with a different rulebook or anything like that. I don't think it does, but just in case it does, just making that clear, this is recorded before it started shipping out. Anyway, for you today we have a 350 rep match between the Penguin, or I guess I should say Emperor Penguin crew, going against a very specific Soldiers of Fortune list that displays a new rule added to quite a few of their units in the Batman app. The Penguin crew actually has one that has given the same rule as well, but we'll talk most about it when looking at Bane's side. But for now, let's start with the Emperor Penguin crew and see what they've got. So here is the 7 miniatures making up the Penguin crew. We're just going to refer to it as the Penguin crew, even though it's Emperor Penguin for brevity's sake. But he is the leader of his team. This is the new Unchained Emperor Penguin. And then he's joined by a staple of mainstays in Penguin crews and also a couple of the new ones. Notably, the free agent, Mr. Toxic. Behind him, the imperceptible man who has a radio. His sidekick is Loose Lips. The overly large Penguin lieutenant in the back there, he is the one that has the new tough guy role, but we'll talk about that more when we look at the other crew, since 4 of them have been given the tough guy role. But he has it as well, and he's also got a grapple gun. Then we have the elite Thug, which is the one with the body armor at the back there, and then Penguin Thug 2 with his absolutely fantastic triple blood 2nd edition assault rifle. He has been given a silencer, and I think that's it. Oh no, and extra ammo as well. So although he's obscuring one of them, there's actually 6 miniatures in the Soldiers of Fortune crew. The very large Bane Unleashed is blocking Chillo at the back there. We also have Mercenary 2 from the Dark Knight Rises starter set, Stealth Op, Malicia, and Infiltrate Op on the left there as well. As far as upgrades go, we'll cover them real quick. Mercenary 2 with his pistol up in the air there. Rip the days where you can see guns on these miniatures apparently. He's got some extra ammo. Stealth Op has been kitted out with a bunch of stuff. Grapple gun, venom dose, neurotropic drugs. Malicia also has an extra venom dose. She comes with one standard, but she's got an extra one. But the main thing to talk about here is tough guys. Bane's been given it, and the 3 henchmen to his right have also been given it. The Penguin Lieutenant has it, and I think some other crew got the brand new Organised Crime starter set in the new 3rd edition starter box. One of their thugs has it as well. It's a bit of an interesting rule. It says they count as 2 models for the purposes of objective cards. Pretty simple, which means that Soldiers of Fortune have had a buff in regards to scoring domination, free-for-all, that kind of thing. They didn't really need that, to be honest. They're already very powerful, but it's a double-edged sword in some ways, because it counts for enemy objective cards as well. So, for instance, the Court of Owls card about killing people, they would count as 2 for that. For Psychopaths, they would count as 2 for that card as well. So it does give them a slight disadvantage against certain cards, but it also gives them a pretty big buff for their own cards. In the Penguin crew's case, obviously the tough guy lieutenant would help count as 2 towards zone control. Is that the one? The territory control? The one where they want to control as much of the 4 quadrants of the map as possible. So it's an interesting change. Speaking of which, not entirely related specifically to Soldiers of Fortune, but Enervating has been changed in the most recent, at time of recording, update to the app in a pretty significant way. The opponent now decides at what point Enervating applies, rather than it just applying to the next time you roll, you effort. So it gives a bit more control over if you want someone to lose dice at a certain point, or to stop them using a certain skill which is described as making an effort to do it, like for instance Vigilante's work. It's a very significant change that has not been gone into detail in the update in the app. It just says, oh, Enervating wording cleared up or something is what they said, which is not true. It's entirely different to how it was worded before, and as such it's a new rule. So it's quite a significant change, as I almost dropped the camera. It's quite a significant change that was not given the attention it deserved. It needed an article on their website, I think, about the description and what this means. Assuming that they meant the change that it's happened. Maybe they've reworded it again by the time you hear this, I don't know. At time of recording though, it has basically changed Enervating going forwards. So we are set up at deployment. You might notice some icons on the map. We'll need to cover that. That's due to cards played in Phase 1 and Phase 2 of Battle Round 1. The Penguin crew is to your left, the Bane crew is to your right, and it is the Bane crew who can take first activation, unless they opt to pass, of course. We'll cover their cards first. They're playing a turn 1 Die Hard, and it is being played on Stealth Op, who is hiding down there. We'll cover full deployment in a second here. They're also playing a Domination in Phase 1. Place an event marker in contact with any enemy model. We don't really need to worry about the rest of the text at present because there's basically a 0 chance this will score this turn. It's just to get it out of hand. But that particular event marker has been placed base to base with Emperor Penguin. Speaking of the Penguin crew, they're playing Territory Fight, so they want to try and control as many of the 4 quadrants of the map as possible, and keep in mind the Lieutenant, who's right up there, he counts as 2, but the Bane crew has a bunch of people who also count as 2, which will affect this card as well, and make it harder to score. They're also playing Secret Equipment Bases. This is one of those cards that, depending on the table setup you've got, it can sometimes basically be impossible to do, because you've got to find 2 scenery elements that are 8 inches apart and 8 inches from a deployment zone, which is very difficult to do. So this rock has been selected, and we're just using event markers just to remind. So this rock is ever so slightly within 8 of the deployment on the left here. The camera went out of focus there, didn't it? Because it's probably focusing on the card. But it is outside of 8 of there, and then the white car up there with the other marker is the other secret equipment bases, because it's more than 8 inches away from the stone, and it is 8 inches clear of either deployment line. So, Infiltrate Op has hidden, so she's actually all the way down here in the enemy deployment zone, hidden behind this building. Stealth Op we showed with Audacity, Malicia with Audacity, Bane's over here with Audacity, Cachilla's behind him without, and Mercenary 2 is there without. Oh, another note in terms of things that have changed in the app, the general wording for anything which is a dose has changed, so Venom, Titan, etc. You don't need to declare it at the start of a turn now, you declare it at the start of the activation of the model who has it, whether or not they want to use it. I presume they've changed that wording because of the serum injector that the Robert Pattinson Batman has, but either way. Penguin Thug 2 up in the building here. Emperor Penguin we've shown already, he has Audacity. He's next to the Elite Thug. Loose Lips has Audacity, Mr. Toxic does, the Lieutenant does, and then the Imperceptible Man is there, but he's got a radio, so he's not too fussed. So with that, we can get started. So it was Infiltrate Op who got the game started, and she has a built-in radio which she used to get a free Inspired Manipulate to put down a suspect marker with a D6 number on it. We'll cover that in a second. Then she moved over here, so she's just outside of 4 of the lampposts there, but still within 12 that she could use her Assault Carbine to take some shots and pepper them into Emperor Penguin. Only managed to do 2 damage all said and done. I mean, she needed 5s because he's defense 4, and again -1 to moving and shooting an assault weapon. Not bad. He's got regeneration, so it's not super terrible for him either. But the reason she played that, and the reason it's got a D6 number on it, is that it became an invasion card. Play when a friendly model places a suspect that's within 4 inches of a scenery element that is within 4 inches of an enemy model. Penguin Thug 2 is on the scenery element, so he is within 4 of it. So it goes down by 1 on each subsequent model's activation. When it hits 0, it will score. Now, I don't think anyone can get to it. Well, maybe he could if he could get Inspired Manipulate. He could drop down, but then that would expose the good gun in Penguin's crew, and he would definitely pay for that, so we'll see. The Imperceptible Man got the game started for Emperor Penguin. Without Audacity, not built-in radio though, sorry, purchased from War Gear Refunding radio, meant that he could move up his 10 inches behind that van there, put down a suspect marker using that free Inspire, and then independent of that, nothing to do with that, during his turn, put into play profitable negotiations for the Penguin. You look at your opponent's hand, pick a when to score phase 3, and if it's not scored by the end of the turn, this card scores instead. A Search and Destroy was selected. That's the one for scoring a few hits, or a couple hits if you did at least 2 efforts. Very unlikely to be fisticuffs in battle round 1, so it's the ideal time to deny it being scored. Next up was Mercenary 2 for the Bane's crew. He started over roughly where we're looking, close enough to the man himself that he had a free Inspired Manipulate, despite not having Audacity. He moved up, but he didn't move up that far. He moved up enough that he's outside of his deployment, within the 2 inches anyway, so he could put down a suspect marker, also just moving towards that rock to help stop secret equipment bases. But he wants to be out the threat range of Emperor Penguin. Now, Emperor Penguin has reach on his chain attack. I think it's reach 3, so you can still reach him with that, but that's not nearly as threatening as when he throws hands. So he's placed a gamble that that's not going to happen, and Emperor Penguin probably wants to stay away from Bane, so we'll see. Penguin's Elite Thug activated without Audacity, but right next to Emperor Penguin himself, so he had that Inspired Manipulate. which he used after moving up to the rock. He put down a suspect marker, he's right next to it, but just as an additional mention, Invasion has also scored for Bane, so that is them on the scoreboard for 2 victory points, independent of what happened there. Coachillo came out from behind Bane without audacity, but obviously next to the man himself, and he used that Inspired Manipulate to put down his suspect marker next to the rock, and also, more importantly, the Penguin Elite Thug, which meant that they could put into play yet another Invasion. So that is within 4 of a scenery element that's within 4 of an enemy model, the rock. Unfortunately though, rolled a 6 for it this time, so that's a lot of time the Penguin crew has to get rid of that. In fact, it might even bleed over to the next turn depending on how many people are left. Well, maybe not quite, but they do have the rest of the turn. Coachillo has stealth, so he's relatively safe from the gunner on the roof. Forgot to mention that's also why the Infiltrate Op felt safe moving there. Well, 1, she's defense 5, but 2, she's got Master of Stealth, so she has better stealth, so you have to be within 6 to see her. Mr. Toxic activated. We'll cover what he did first, but he did begin his turn by playing a card as a resource. He moved up his 10 inches around the back of the crashed monorail there. There is a gap in the wall there just next to that traffic cone. Up his full 10 inches next to that secret equipment base's marked car, and he put down a suspect marker. However, the important part that he did as a resource, Territory Fight was played as a resource, which I hope is in focus. During a friendly model's activation, if an enemy suspect is within 4 of an enemy model, move that enemy suspect 4 inches. So guess which one got moved? The one that is counting down and is now down to 5, but about to go to 4. It's been moved 4 inches this way to let either Emperor Penguin or maybe Loose Lips. Actually no, Loose Lips only moves 8, so I don't think that's enough. But either way, Emperor Penguin can definitely reach in now to get rid of it. Malicia activated for the Soldiers of Fortune next. She was up there on the roof of the dilapidated police station. She used Super Jump as a special action to be placed within 6, which basically made her super jump down to there. She then moved 10 up to here, and then during her turn put into play Cyber Attack. So you select 2 enemy suspect markers, roll 1d3 plus 2. The number reduces after each subsequent activation if either of them are still in play. When it hits 0, it will score for 2, and they are going to be in play because the Penguin crew needs them to stay. This one next to the rock has been selected, and that one next to the car, which is the other important secret equipment base's target, have been selected, so they're probably going to stay. So the next activation for the Penguin crew was the gunman on the roof, and he opted to shoot at Coachillo, who does have stealth. He had to fire blind into the night, which subtracts 2 dice, basically the equivalent of moving and firing. He also lost 1 die because Coachillo has a bulletproof vest, so he was only rolling 1 against him, needing a 4+ or a 3+. Either way, he did get it, so Coachillo has taken 3 blood damage of his 5 HP, I believe he has, yeah. Stealth Up came out of hiding from behind the building here, used his grapple gun as a special action. He had audacity, shot forwards, total of 16 inches, right down here between Malicia and the Infiltrate Op. Now again, that does also put him in the threat radius of Emperor Penguin with that massive reach on his chain attack, but it's whether or not he wants to surround himself by so many enemies and choose to ignore the timer on Invasion, which is about to tick down to 1. So Emperor Penguin did activate. That's the I was going to say second last, but no, it's the third last activation for their crew. However, quick correction, when he got shot twice by Infiltrate Op, his Fight Me, is that the rule? Or Brawler, he has a rule where for every hit he receives, not the complete attack, but for literally every hit, he gains defense markers. So he actually has 2 defense markers now on his person. But he moved up and he did remove the enemy suspect marker there to make sure that the Invasion does not score. I mean, the other one did, but that one does not. It's discarded. He then used Provoke on Coachillo and succeeded the opposed willpower roll, because Coachillo's just a cheap and cheerful henchman, relatively speaking, for Soldiers of Fortune, so it's not hard to beat. So now if he wants to do an attack action, he can only use it on Emperor Penguin. He couldn't go and attack the thug there, for instance. He can still do other stuff if he wants, but if he wants to do an attack, he can only do it on Emperor Penguin unless Emperor Penguin dies or uses the Provoke skill on someone else. So there's still 2 activations for the Penguin crew to go, but the Soldiers of Fortune went with their last, and it was Bane himself. He did start up there, he moved forwards his 10 inches and has stopped there, ready to go feast on some bones next turn. Oh, and with Bane's activation, Cyber Attack has ticked down and has scored for 2. So Loose Lips activated, moved up his 8 inches. He's got one of the boys now, so he counted with his boss's Inspire and used that to put down a suspect marker. He then shot his assault shotgun losing a die to Bulletproof Vest on Mercenary 2. The one dice he had left, all said and done, did nothing, and that means it is over to the Penguin Lieutenant to end off the battle round. And the Penguin Lieutenant had audacity. He made use of his grapple gun rather than taking the sewer marker, although with hindsight actually he was right on the sewer marker, wasn't he? Which might work out better for his plan, because his plan is to try and help score territory fight. So you know what? He did not use his grapple gun. He manipulated and came out the sewer because it's actually where he needs it to be for what he wants to do. So he is moved there. With that, we can go to cleanup and scoring. So then the battle round 1, there is a lot to cover, starting with Emperor Penguin healing 1 blood damage because he has regeneration, but we have a lot of cards in play plus some new ones to talk through. So let's start with the Penguin side. Profitable negotiations. Scores, because the Search and Destroy did not get scored by Bane's crew. The Secret Equipment Bases does not score, and that is because there is a draw for 1 suspect marker each next to the rock. The one that Loose Lips placed is slightly outside of 4 to make it a viable placement because of that one, so unfortunately it didn't. If he'd placed it a little bit differently, it might have scored, if it was possible. So that didn't score. Territory Fight does score for 3. Now, we have to do some maths here, but 18 by 18, 4 quadrants. This quadrant is a 4-4 draw, and that is because Stealth Up has tough guys. So that's 2, 3, 4 for Bane, 1, 2, 3, 4 for Penguin, draw 4 each. Bane's crew has this one. Gachillo and Bane both have tough guys, 4 versus 0. That's 1 to them. That's a draw, so it doesn't count. Up here, this is owned by Penguin's crew. Mr. Toxic plus the Lieutenant with tough guys, that's 3 versus 2, because he has tough guys as well, so they own that. And they own this quadrant as well, thanks to the Imperceptible Man riding the line, so he gets to choose which section he counts as being in. There's no Bane people up there, so 2 territories controlled versus 1 versus a draw means it does score. And then after that, they're also scoring. You stick to the plan, because they have 3 to the Soldiers of Fortune's 2, I believe. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh wait, 4 versus 2. So they actually managed to score a hefty chunk of points there, despite not scoring anything during the round. As far as the Soldiers of Fortune go, their die-hard scores. Stealth Up was totally fine. Their Domination does not score because they didn't even make an effort to try and get to the event marker over there, so it's gone. They are scoring a Phase 4 card though. They're scoring Ground War. You have at least 2 friendly models not suffering KO within 4 inches of the same scenery element that's within 8 or inside the opponent's deployment zone. Pick either of these 2, and maybe even her. This building, it's inside, and obviously also within, so that has scored for 3. So a high scoring post turn for both crews, and with that we are going into Battle Round 2. So here we are at the start of Battle Round 2, and it is the Penguin crew that's going to be taking first activation, and that was despite the pass being unused, giving them +1 to the Soldiers of Fortune's chance to maintain priority, but they didn't. We have some cards to cover for both sides again. Another Domination is being put into play by the Swords of Fortune, although this one has a much better chance of landing. It has been placed in base to base with Emperor Penguin, because this is probably where most of the fighting is going to happen this turn. So it's right there, so Bane's crew is going to try and have the most models within 4 inches of it by the end of the turn. And that will score for 3 if they manage it. Penguin's crew is putting a Phase 1 into play. They're putting Die Hard. It's being played on the Imperceptible Man, who's off on his lonesome up there behind the blue van. And they're doing another territory fight as well, because why not? They may as well give it a go. Although I imagine there's going to be a lot of bloodshed this turn. We can take a quick look at who has Audacity. Stealth Up, Malicia, Infiltrate Up, Bane, and then for Emperor Penguin's crew, Man himself, Loose Lips, Mr. Toxic, and the Lieutenant again. So let's see what happens. Well, it was Emperor Penguin who got the round started, and he doesn't much feel like trying to fight Bane, because that's a fight he will not win. So he instead went after Mercenary 2, got into base to base with him, although instead of fighting him, he opted to put down a suspect marker, and the reason for that is in order to score a goods raid, finally. A friendly model places a suspect, and you have at least 2 more in play than your opponent, which was already true, but now he's played it, and there's 3 ahead. Does mean he isn't getting to attack this turn, which is rough, but he's in a place where Bane will struggle to fit. I guess he would have to kind of go round, which is possible, I suppose. It might be able to balance him there. It's going to get a little awkward. Well, the beatdown has begun, but it wasn't Bane. It was Malicia who activated. She used Super Jump. You don't need to wait a turn between doing those. She also used a Venom Dose, her bonus one, and she got into base to base with poor Penguin Thug 2 to take that good gun out of the equation for now. She gets 2 free efforts, strength +1, for being on Venom. Didn't effort because she's doing double stun damage. She only got 3 hits through. It wasn't actually that great of a roll. Like, the thing that lets her down is being attack 3. But worked out, knocked him out, and in doing so has removed the threat for 1, but also scored Search and Destroy. An enemy model suffers at least 2 hits during an attack where a friendly model performs at least 2 efforts. She got 2 for free. The Penguin Lieutenant activated next. He had Audacity, and he also opted to avoid starting the punch up this turn because it's much more important that they start scoring cards. So he came down here on the far side of this truck, put down a suspect marker. It is inside enemy deployment, and that scores "This is mine" when it comes into focus. A friendly model places a suspect in the enemy deployment zone, and there are more friendly suspects than enemy suspect markers in the gaming area, which is out of focus, but I assure you that it is true. The quite badly wounded Cuchillo activated next to Bane without Audacity. He moved over here and then used to manipulate to remove the suspect marker that the elite thug had put down in the previous turn. Also puts him right next to the domination marker. And in removing that suspect marker, he scored the neutral card Confusion for removing a suspect marker within 8 of the enemy deployment zone. So for a quick 2 points. However, in doing so, he triggered Penguin Trap card, and Not Bind, Don't Touch was put into play. When an enemy model removes a friendly suspect or a friendly model as a casualty, mark it in some way. That model has a suspect marker within 4 of it by the end of the round. So as long as it's true at the end of the round, it will score for 2, but there has to be a suspect marker within 4 of Cuchillo, which also means he can't die, because if he's dead and removed on the table, it can't be true. That one there is slightly too far away, as is that one. The Imperceptible Man activated, no Audacity again, but having that radio purchase for him with funding meant that he did have a manipulate. He removed his own suspect marker that he placed last turn, turned it into loot, so he is now holding on to viable commodities, hopefully for the entirety of the game. He's wanting to hide because he's got the Die Hard on him as well, so he just moved back a little bit. So he's kind of obscured by the van there, he's outside of the light, and holding this section for territory fight to try and keep it in Penguin's favour. Infiltrate Op activated and didn't really have that great of a turn. She didn't really want to make use of her hacking, but she did move up here to help score domination, although she doesn't have the tough guys role. There was 2 suspect markers within her hacking range she could have moved, but she doesn't want to make it easier for one to be placed near Cuchillo or accidentally move one close enough to him that Not Bind, Don't Touch scores. So you couldn't make use of it. Incidentally, totally forgot that Emperor Penguin has scheming too, so could have been manipulating a couple of markers at the raise the plan phase for turn 2. Not sure if that would have made a difference to anything. Going forwards, we'll try and remember. But during her turn, she did put into play a global offensive, so at the end of the turn, if there is more models with veteran in play than there are enemy suspects, this will score. And because of the simple way the tough guys is worded, the models that are veterans and tough guys apparently count as 2 for this card. I don't know if that's the intention, but that's the way it reads. So normally, as my dog barks in the background, it would be 6, and I think there's currently 4 suspect markers, but because 4 of them have tough guys, that's an extra 4 points added on, so it's actually 10, which is more than Penguin can put down, because you can have 8 suspect markers in total. That doesn't seem like the intention, but because of how simple tough guys is written, that's it. It counts, because it just says they count as two models for objective cards. So presumably that means that their traits double up. It might not be, because again, it doesn't make much sense because it makes it impossible to counter this card, but they need to make the wording better. You know, all that talking about the global offensive card, totally forgot to cover the one thing Infiltrate Op also did with her turn. She shot into Loose Lips, moving and firing. Red Dot Assault though, only managed to get 2 shots through, so 2 is her magic number apparently. Did 2 blood damage to him. Mr. Toxic activated and came down here to play with Mercenary 2. As a special action he used Energy Absorption, which turns all damage he deals, and he has Reinforced Gloves, to blood, and also means for every successful hit he heals 1 damage. Mercenary 2, knowing that he's now doing just blood damage, efforted 3 times, so did Mr. Toxic. He got 3 hits through, all said and done, for 6 blood, meaning that poor Mercenary 2 is out of there, and that he'll just heal the efforts he put in before the damage was rolled. During his turn, he also put into play another Profitable Negotiations. This time a free-for-all was selected, and the reason for that is currently Penguin's crew is actually kind of holding the middle. The middle of the map is approximately there-ish, so right now, even, well, with Mercenary 2 gone now, they're really holding it. Stealth Op activated, second last activation of the turn for Soldiers of Fortune. Now Mercenary 2 is gone. Snuck up round the side of the truck here, put down a suspect marker, and thanks to the elite Penguin Thug being there, met the criteria to score Black Op for putting a suspect marker 8 inches away from any model that can't draw line of sight to it, or the model that placed it. So speaking of that Penguin Elite Thug, he activated without Audacity, but within 8 of his boss for a free Inspire. He put down a suspect marker to try and make sure that Not Buying, Don't Touch scores, and then he retreated behind his boss. Now that puts Bane in a very difficult situation, because Bane's the last one to activate for Soldiers of Fortune. He could waste his turn, well not waste, he could go and remove that, but then Loose Lips could activate and go put down another one. He can't really get to Emperor Penguin now because Elite Thug is blocking him and his big base won't fit, and he can't balance on the wall because that's not allowed. So it's a difficult decision, or he could just go punch someone for the fun of it. I don't know, we'll see in a second. So you know Bane just wanted to go smash something. On Venom obviously, because he has 4 Venom doses, so there's no reason not to use one each turn for those 2 free efforts and +1 strength. He went after the elite Penguin Thug, who did not effort against the unbridled or unleashed strength, whatever his attack is called. His reinforced gloves, but better because it's got handy for full rerolls. Let's see, 8 damage got through in total, and that is more than enough that the elite Thug is obviously instantly knocked out. It also means that Bane could score another Search and Destroy for landing at least 2 hits, and he had 2 free efforts. But another Not Buying, Don't Touch could be put into play as a result in his activation, and even though the score condition is checked at the end of the round, they were both placed in different activations, so they will both score if nothing changes. And given that it's only Loose Lips to go, both Bane and Cuchillo are within 4 inches of a suspect marker, so that's a lot of points to give up, but it is another threat knocked out. So as a result of being able to play that other Not Buying, Don't Touch, an opportunity arose for Loose Lips to be super useful. He walked round here and removed the suspect marker that the Stealth Hub had placed down and met the criteria for his own card, Street Transaction, which is worth a massive 3, and this was just a lucky draw from the deck. Friendly model reveals an enemy suspect marker within 6 inches of 2 friendly ones, and a friendly model with the leader or sidekick rank. He's a sidekick, so he's obviously within distance of himself, and he is within 6 of those 2 free suspect markers right there, so that's scored for 3. And now we go into the end phase where there is a ton of check conditions to happen for the various cards Penguin played that turn. So at the end of battle round 2, the game is going to start getting much faster because Penguin's crew, both knocked out miniatures, are not waking up this turn. So they're down 2 activations. There is a plethora of Penguin cards to cover. You know what, let's do Soldiers of Fortune first because it's quicker. Domination scores because they have the most models within 4 of the marker, which is there, and Cuchillo and Bane and the Stealth Up all have tough guys, so they're worth 2 each, so yeah, easily scores for 3. Their Global Offensive also scores, again, because of tough guys, even losing Mercenary 1, that still puts them at a total of 8, using the tough guy rule, and there's currently 1, 2, 3, 4, I believe, 5 or 6 suspect markers for Penguin's crew, so that also scores for 3, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, because then we go to what Penguin scores. Let's start with, he does have more suspect markers than Bane's crew, so another stick to the plan came out for 2. Bane currently just has the 1 suspect marker down, I believe, because the other one got removed by Loose Lips. Territory Fight does score. The entirety of Bane's surviving crew is in this section. Penguin's crew holds that section, and the lieutenant is bridging both counts as 2, so he's holding this section. So that scored for 3. Die Hard scores because the Imperceptible Man is totally fine, so that scored for 2. Profitable Negotiations scores because the free-for-all didn't even get played. And the 2 Not Buying, Don't Touches both score because Bane and Cuchillo both have a suspect marker within 4 of them. So Penguin's crew is making massive ground in the recap phases, which is really interesting. It doesn't usually go this way for them, but this crew is working with the deck really well. So with that, let's jump into Battle Round 3's setup. So here we are at the top of turn 3. Almost everyone who's conscious on the table has Audacity besides Imperceptible Man and Cuchillo, I believe. However, I forgot to mention a couple of things in cleanup. Emperor Penguin, his regeneration has brought him back to full health. That's all the blood damage on him gone. But totally forgot because of how many Penguin cards to cover there was actually a card to play from phase 4 for Soldiers of Fortune, another ground war. And it's the same building down here, and Malacea and Stealth Up covered the criteria, so that did score for 3. So that bridges the gap between the score difference a little bit. In terms of this turn, there's a phase 2 being played by Penguin's crew. It is secret equipment bases, and it's the same two targets. It is the rock, but also the car. So we'll see if that scores at the end of the round. And their valuable commodities is still in play on the Imperceptible Man, very safely. Oh, and it would help if I mentioned who's going first. It is Bane's crew going first this round, unless they pass. Although actually I don't think they have passes now. Oh boy, battle round 3 went off with a bang. Bane activated. He can pass through enemy models, you just obviously can't end on them. He hopped up onto the car and initiated felonious assault on Emperor Penguin, but we have to cover a few of his rules. He used Grudge Match for a special action, which means he is not, well, neither of them are allowed to use efforts, first of all. He used his Venom, but instead of taking the normal effects, he used Overdrive Venom, I think it's called. Either way, it lets you do a couple of things. He picked that all his stun damage is converted to blood damage this turn. He has a Break the Bat rule, which means if he's attacking the enemy boss, he crits on a 3+ instead of a 6. And obviously he still has full rerolls. Emperor Penguin had 2 extra rerolls thrown in for that buff from getting hit earlier, but he would have needed 6s because Bane is strength 6. All said and done, you'll notice that there is 12 damage there. Bane did 10 standard, but he also got the crit and he has bleed 2, so that's 2 extra damage. 12 bleed damage. Unfortunately means for Emperor Penguin that those defense markers were not any help to you. You have been smushed by Bane. Oh, and also he has one other rule. I've forgotten what it's called offhand, but when he defeats the enemy boss, he chucks them, and if you hit a suspect marker, it gets destroyed. So this enemy suspect marker is also destroyed. I actually forgot there was a Soldiers of Fortune suspect marker under Emperor Penguin. I don't think that would have made a difference to anything, but totally forgot that he was covering one. Bane did manage to score a card on that. Search and Destroy, the final card, so it has been scored. And removing Emperor Penguin is obviously a bad thing for the Penguin crew, but what do you expect when Bane is that hopped up on Venom? So we've got the Penguin Lieutenant to talk about, but first, upon Bane murdering Emperor Penguin, the final, I believe, not bind, don't touch has been put into play, and it might be true at the end of the turn. It currently is not, but there is opportunity to put down a suspect marker within 4 of him. So the Penguin Lieutenant, he walked around the truck here, put down another suspect marker, and scored another "This is mine." He doesn't care what's going on the rest of the battlefield, he's just over here doing work. A little awkward to get an angle on, but Stealth Up activated, moved behind Loose Lips to nothing personnel him, using his Venom Dose as well, the one Venom Dose that was purchased for him. Didn't help that much. Loose Lips efforted 3 times, he efforted once, and then he had these 2 free ones from the Venom. So basically it was just down to his base attacks with rerolls. And only the strength that I got through. It was not a good set of rolls, so 2 blood to Loose Lips from the sword hit there. On top of the 2 he already had, he's at 4 now of his... 7 endurance he has. But during Stealth Up's turn he put into play a free-for-all, so that's the card for having most people, or most bodies, within 4 of the centre. I don't actually think Stealth Up is within 4 from where he's currently standing, but Bane's there, Cuchillo gets over there, that'd be 4 between the 2 of them. Infiltrate Up can help as well, so it's got a good chance of scoring. Loose Lips decided that discretion is the better part of valour and ran down here in order to put down a suspect marker next to the Batmobile, scoring the second and the only other one. Goods Raid, because they have many more suspect markers placed currently than Bane's crew, opted not to go over to the big man himself because that would just spell his doom. Penguin's crew is actually running out of cards in their deck to score. They've been scoring massively. They're losing numbers on the table, but they're getting through their deck like nobody's business. This may come down to who has the higher skill ceiling in like the total, or not skill ceiling, sorry, score ceiling for their decks. Infiltrate Op activated, moved where you can see her to help score free for all, and hacked in order to move the 2 suspect markers that were kind of like there-ish, and then also there-ish, right next to her so she could use her own tactical action, and then the free inspired manipulate from Bane. She has a radio and he's there to remove both of them, and put into play a global offensive, so she was just making the odds better that this would score, although currently I think, again counting tough guys, it's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They're counting as having 8 currently if they lose no one else this turn. So I think we're already on the second last activation for the Penguin crew. Mr. Toxic, he moved round and put down another suspect marker just outside of 4 of the one there in order to try and make sure that Not Bind, Don't Touch scores for it being near Bane and no one else can be there to get rid of it. He could have Electric Storm to do double stun damage to Bane, but he is huge, which would ignore it, so there's no point. So he's just sitting there, twiddling his thumbs, putting down suspect markers, And for Bane's crew, I think it's just Malicia to go now. Oh wait, or Cuchillo. So it's getting a little busy in the middle there, but Cuchillo activated. I've just realised that domination marker shouldn't be there because there's none in play. He activated, used the free inspire from Bane being just within 8 to put down a suspect marker, and then moved to help secure the middle there for the free-for-all. And he scored a Black Ops for putting down that suspect marker because the unconscious elite penguin thug could not see him or the suspect marker from where it was placed, which was the rock. The rock. Last activation for Penguin's crew this turn was the imperceptible man, and his radio is no good rather if there's no one on the other end of it telling him what to do. So without audacity, he just shuffled his way up behind the building there to try and keep himself safe with the loot that he is carrying. And now it's over to Malicia to end the turn. So the only thing Malicia did with her turn was put down a suspect marker, wants to stay up there to maybe punch out the thug and kill him, just in case he gets woken up at the end of a turn. And in placing that, she's put into play another invasion. Unfortunately, she rolled a 6. Obviously, it's got no chance of scoring this turn, but it doesn't have to score in the turn in which it's played. It will carry over to the final turn and probably score there. So at the end of the penultimate round, things are indeed going quick, and they're going to stay quick because the Thug 2 up on the roof with the gun and also the Elite Thug are not waking up, and they rolled a 9 and a 12 respectively. Penguin's crew does have a lot of cards in play though. The Not Buying Don't Touch scores thanks to Mr. Toxic putting a suspect marker down within 4 of Bane. The secret equipment bases do not, because Penguin's only got suspect markers near the car, not the rock, which Bane does, so it's discarded. But they did score their final stick to the plan. They still have the majority of the suspect markers, so that's scored. And valuable commodities stays in play. For Bane's crew, the invasion card we just covered is still staying in play. The free-for-all, they do indeed have the most conscious people. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so does their global offensive. Actually, no, I didn't count this one up fully. So, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. How many suspect markers does Penguin's crew have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, it does score. 8 versus 5. And with that, while I go check this text, into the final round. So here we are, dawn of the final day, top of the final turn. And it is the Penguin crew, newly led by Loose Lips, for lack of anyone better to pick, that will be taking first activation. I should mention, once we cover the cards that are in play, both sides only have 3 cards left in their hand with no more to draw, and some of those are cards that are in play, so they couldn't play multiple of them. This is going to be one of the highest scoring games ever, and it's amazing both crews, especially despite the Penguin crew having losses, they've just been able to work around each other to score, but I digress. Domination in play for Bane's crew. It was placed in base-to-base contact with the unconscious elite thug. Very high chance of that scoring. Soldiers of Fortune definitely looking to control the middle this turn. Secret equipment bases in play for Penguin again. The rock, the car. Not much chance of it, but hey, it's in play. Speaking of which, territory fight as well. Again, not much chance since they're a bit thin on the ground now. Audacity wise, everybody conscious for the Bane crew except Cuchillo has Audacity. And everyone who is conscious for the Penguin crew, or Loose Lips crew now, also has Audacity. So the Penguin Lieutenant got the game started, used his grapple gun mostly just for fun, hopped up onto the building here, put down a suspect marker and scored the final This Is Mine. He scored all 3 of those. He's just over here doing work. As long as he doesn't look in that direction, he thinks everything's going fine. He put 6 victory points on the scoreboard, and he helped towards territory fight once as well, or twice. So he's done. He's probably MVP for them, honestly. Well, first activation for Soldiers of Fortune was Bane, and he went after Mr. Toxic, who efforted 3 times, because why not? Bane had 2 free efforts, but he did 1 more. The 2 free ones were from his Venom dose, of course. And he just did 12 casual stun damage to Mr. Toxic, knocking him out 6 ways from Sunday. During his turn, nothing to do with what he did to Mr. Toxic, he put into play a free-for-all, which is basically going to score because Soldiers of Fortune are holding the centre of the battlefield. There's nothing left really for the Penguins crew to do that would result in them scoring. Secret Equipment Bases is not going to get the majority suspect markers required for it, based on how many Soldiers of Fortune still were left to go. So Loose Lips, the boss, decided to retreat down here just to kind of deny points as opposed to scoring points. With that, it was worth pointing out that Invasion ticked down to 3 on his turn, because that's why we're still playing on. We have to make sure that ticks down. So as that ticks down to 2, Malicia activated, super jumped down here, put down a suspect marker and put into play the last invasion. Unfortunately rolled a 4. I don't think there's that many activations left in the game. Let's see. Imperceptible Man, and then Infiltrate Op. Oh no, there is Stealth Op, Cuchillo. That actually is fine. That means it will score. We might just call it there and say that it's scored. We'll see what Imperceptible Man does, although most likely he's going to hide in order to score viable commodities. So after a quick look there for Imperceptible Man, just to see if there was any way for him to influence territory fight to his advantage, at best he could make it a 2-2 draw. Bane is holding this quadrant, he is also holding that quadrant. It could be a draw up there, but that wouldn't matter because there's no one over there, so that would also be a draw. This side down here is under Penguin control, but there's no way for them to get 2 of the 4 to get majority, so nothing to do other than cover the cards in play and then see who's won in what is probably the most high scoring game we've ever had in the channel. I can't believe how well both crews worked, scoring their objectives, moderately ignoring each other. Penguin didn't do much interaction, well we shouldn't talk about the end of the game yet, but they didn't do much interaction with the Soldiers of Fortune, honestly, they just focused on scoring their cards. Soldiers of Fortune, if they'd taken out different targets, would have made it harder for Penguin to score his cards, but the ones they picked, Emperor Penguin, the gun up on the roof, didn't really stop him scoring anything. So of the cards in play, Territory Fight does not score as previously discussed, so that's discarded. Valuable Commodities does score because the Imperceptible Man ended the game with the loot. Secret Equipment Bases, nope. There is 1 enemy suspect marker only. Low Slips could have gone and placed 1 there incidentally, but it didn't have majority, and obviously they could just activate, put down 1 as well, or she could hack them away. No point, definitely would not score. So they only get the 3 for Valuable Commodities. The Soldiers of Fortune, their 2 invasions would tick down before the end of the game because of how many of them have not gone yet. So those have both scored for 2 each. They're free-for-all scores because they hold the centre and are conscious, because KO'd models don't count. And their domination also counts, because the marker got put down there, and again, they hold majority on that, so they made back a lot there. This is going to be ridiculous scores. Let's go see what it is. So no matter which deck you look at here, it's basically almost all their cards. I think Penguin didn't score 4 cards and Bane didn't score 1. So it just depends really on the score difference of the neutral cards. Let's move these out of the way for now. Let's start with the Bane crew. A lot of counting to do. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 44. Good grief, that is a record for the channel, 44. Let's see if the Penguin crew can top it. 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40. Close. A difference of 4 points. But 44 playing 40. Definitely the highest scoring game we've ever had. It was not one-sided. Well, in terms of who's losing by being beaten up, I guess it is kind of one-sided. But points-wise, super close. And as I say, it's just so amazing the Penguin was able to score his cards despite suffering losses. Target priority, Soldier of Fortune seemed smart. Take out the leader, take out the dangerous gun. Didn't stop them scoring cards, so it didn't help. I guess you could argue if he was up and still shooting, Cuchillo almost certainly would be dead, and maybe someone else as well. But yeah, really interesting, very interesting mix of crews. That tough guy rule, it does have downsides against certain crews like Joker and Core of Owls, but it does give some cards in the Soldiers of Fortune hand too much of an advantage that they didn't really need, in my opinion. They were already very powerful, and a lot of their cards are pretty easy to score. Penguins, on the other hand, can be pretty hard, so him having a guy with tough guy that can go around and help with territory fight, especially if you give him a grapple gun, that works out really well. And him getting into the backline and just plodding along, suspect marker, suspect marker, suspect marker, scoring 6. He did good work. He was definitely the MVP for them. MVP for the Bane crew was probably Bane, just from taking out people, and it's just always very fun watching him do that. But I don't know how much points he actually scored. Honestly, I think Malicia might have done more point scoring than anyone else, but might be wrong. Anyway, I sincerely hope you enjoyed watching. Thank you very much for doing so. We'll hopefully see the new starter set soon, or maybe before you see this, depending on how long it takes to edit. Hope you enjoyed though, and thanks for watching. Until next time, ta-ta for now.